Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this Shine Together webinar. We're talking about the Women's Awards today, and you're here, and I'm so pleased about that. So, just in case you don't know, we do have regular monthly podcasts, quarterly webinars. As I said, I'm Sandra Pollock, founder of the Women's Awards, and the crazy ideas behind all that we do here at Shine Together and the Women's Awards. So I'm looking like that because I've actually got my notes on that side. So that's why I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to just remind myself of what it is that I want to say. So, what's the Women's Awards about? What is its impact? We will be talking to some of our sponsors and some of our previous winners, and also for anyone who doesn't fit that quite yet, if you've got any questions, we will have a Q&A closer to the end. But in the meantime, you can put your questions in the chat box, and we will come to those hopefully during the session. If we don't, because we can get chatting, I know these people on the panel. If we don't, we will put your questions in the forum, which can be found on our Shine Together website portal area, and we'll put the answers in there. So enough of me talking. I want to introduce our panelists, and I am delighted that we have with us today. We have Debbie Moore, we have David Hayes. Hi, Debbie. Hi, David. And we also have Linda Neville. Now, they know me well enough to know that I usually put them in the hot seat. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, tell us about their businesses, tell us about them, what they do, and also tell us a little bit about their current and previous connections with the Women's Awards. So we're going to start us off, I'm going to invite Debbie to the hot seat. Debbie, welcome, and tell us about you.
Thanks, Sandra. Hi, everyone. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Debbie Moore. I'm founder of Embody Coaching Limited, and I'm director of Debbie Moore Coaching. And my husband, David, who's here too, and I are co-headline sponsors for the Women's Awards. We were for 2025, and we are so inspired by this movement that we put our names forward, and Sandra accepted our enthusiasm and passion to be headline sponsors for 2026, which is really important because this is the 10th year of the Women's Awards. And it means we get a front row seat to celebrate brilliant women, the impact and contribution that they're having on society. And I never say no to things like that. In my own work, I've, going back, corporate career, but for the past 25 years, I've been an entrepreneur. And in recent years, I've worked in a very woman-centered way and somatically. And I help entrepreneurial women and leaders transform relationships, their businesses, and lives in a way where they feel authentically confident and empowered in ways that AI will never or can't replicate. I've got over 40 years experience in people development, including in corporate leadership, board experience, international coaching. And my mission is really to help women stop people pleasing, overcome or overwhelm, and lead authentically. Outside work, you might find me walking or doing Pilates, often with David, enjoying good food and a nice burgundy wine, and building a life with my husband, David. We came together later in life. He insists he's the co-pilot, but I know he's navigating most of the time. I'm thrilled to be here, and my hope is to leave you inspired, reassured, and really connect with your impact and your contribution. Because so often as women, we don't celebrate, we don't acknowledge. And being part of the Women's Awards, I've known you, Sandra, now for many, many years. And I started to get more involved in recent years as a supporter, as a nominee. And in 2023, I was nominated Most Outstanding Woman in Professional Services in the East Midlands. And it was really hearing other women's stories and being acknowledged myself that made me want to get involved more. Hence, really wanting to be part of this movement that really supports and amplifies other women and their impact through being a sponsor.
Great.
So I'll
Thank you.
pause there.
Thank you, Debbie. That's an awesome introduction and a wonderful, wonderful way to start. Okay, so David, I am going to get you to come in the spotlight and introduce yourself. Welcome, tell us a little bit about you, and similarly, why on earth have you gotten involved with the Women's Awards over these years?
Thank you, Sandra. Well, my background, to use one of Deb's favourite words, I suppose, is fairly eclectic. I used to work for the UK government in what's called counter-proliferation. From there into some major companies, and my last proper job, if you like, was the corporate head of compliance for the Rolls-Royce Group. And for the past 20 odd years, I've been an independent consultant in the same area, looking at both US and UK law. And outside of that, I also spent 10 years as an intelligence officer in the RAF Reserve. And my spare time hobby, if you like, I like flying helicopters. So that's me in a nutshell. The awards, I think, they resonate very deeply with me. Deb mentioned that we came together later in life. The company that I work under still bears my late wife's name, and through her career in healthcare predominantly, she put up with a lot of problems, harassment, discrimination, including at one stage constructive dismissal. And those sort of things shape the way that you look at things, sometimes without you actually being conscious that the way you look at these things and the way you question these things is actually changing. I think it certainly changed the way that I look at things. It was only recently that a friend of mine pointed out to me that my entire team back in my Rolls-Royce days was women. That wasn't intentional on my part, but it might point to some kind of subconscious bias on my part because I enjoy working with women. I like the energy that women bring and the difference in approach that women take to problem resolution, particularly. Men can be, it's too much about who comes out as top dog, not what is the best solution all too often. So when I found out about the awards, it was a no-brainer to come along and take a look. And then when you do that, you encounter Sandra's energy. And that's all encompassing in itself. So what started off as being a mere spectator progressed into being a judge. And I think it's important to say that the Women's Awards don't simply promote and amplify women to the exclusion of men. On the contrary, one of the awards is for the outstanding male supporting women in this area. And my first venture into sponsorship was as a category sponsor for that award. And then you become more involved in the judging and more involved in the event itself, and you see things from a deeper perspective, and you realize the outstanding quality and capabilities of the people who are nominated for these awards and the people who actually win the awards. And inspirational is a cliche all too often, but these people are truly inspirational. And the background and the struggles that some of them have gone through and are still going through, it takes your breath away. And to be able to amplify that and to be part of, especially in this, this 10th anniversary year, to be part of the awards ceremony that is designed to amplify women in that regard and recognise the achievements not only of the winners but also of all the nominees is an absolute privilege. And it just resonates so much with who I am that that's what led me to get involved. And I say to people at any opportunity, take a look. You don't have to dive in head first. You can dip a toe in the water and just go along and have a good evening and enjoy the event, which has evolved immensely over the years. And it really is a truly superb evening. It's a great event to go to at a wonderful venue. And why wouldn't you want to go to that? Have a look, see what you think. And if it resonates with you, then start small if you want to. Start big if you want to. Talk to Sandra and say you want to be 2027's headline sponsor. Might push you out of the way, but that's that's another story. But it really is. There is an energy to the entire concept and to the event that just sweeps you up and takes you along with it like a wave. And that, in a nutshell, is why I am where I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing today.
Great. Thank you so much, David. Wow, that's an amazing sharing of your experience and very valued from my perspective. Thank you very much. And from everybody else who's involved. So our third panelist today is Linda Neville. And Linda, the questions at this point are the same for you. Welcome. Tell us about you. Tell us about your business. Why are you involved?
Okay, I mean, how on earth do I follow those two? Honestly, you're both amazing. So, I'm Linda, and I'm the owner and founder of a company called Sanimenti Services. And my background is in mental health services. I've worked in mental health for 40 years. And as you can imagine, a lot of that has been working with stigma, discrimination, people who are finding it very, very difficult to assert their place in society and to even be given consideration sometimes. So lots of time in the NHS for 26 years, then I left in 2011 and set up on my own. And what I wanted to do was try and address some of that challenge and stigma that I'd experienced in the NHS. Like you said, David, you know, I at the point that I was director of adult mental health services, I was the only female operational director across the piece, and I was working predominantly with, you know, there were 10 men in my peer group, but obviously not my peers, but 10 men in that group, and it was a very, very different dynamic, and a difficult dynamic sometimes as well. So when I left, I wanted to give back to people. To my aim and my purpose in life is to help people have personal agency, to understand themselves, to apply themselves to whatever their life challenges are, and to absolutely get the best out of themselves in a way that suits them, that gives them permission to live a full and satisfying life and to feel enjoyment and personal agency. So left, set up on my own, and in 2021 I launched an arm of the company called Strive, and that's our mental fitness program. So it's a bit like going to the gym. We've created a community of people who are dedicated and focused on building their mental fitness. So yes, we do provide intervention for people who are challenged, if you like, with anxiety, stress and depression, but we also work in a preventative way, helping people to put in coping strategies that will help them live their life before they hit that time of stress, burnout, whatever it happens to be. So for me, the Women's Awards were, I'd heard about them for ages because Sandra and I joined the same business club in 1922, I think it was, Sandra, wasn't it? And I've heard about the involvement of, when it was a seedling of an idea right through to where we are now 10 years later. And it's Sandra's passion and drive that has got us to where we are today. It's absolutely amazing and inspirational. So for years, I was on the sidelines. I was nominating people that I thought were wonderful, women that I thought were wonderful and deserved the accolade. And then in 2023, I was nominated for 3 and I was completely blown away, just did not expect it. So I was nominated for Outstanding Women in Care, Outstanding Women as an Entrepreneur, and I won Care, and I was running up for Entrepreneur, and I was absolutely delighted. I thought, this is great. This is like the best night ever. And then I was awarded the Inspirational Female Lead, and that is the one that absolutely took my breath away. I can remember standing on the stage and my legs were shaking. I had no words, and I couldn't believe that it had happened. It was just amazing. And on reflection, the confidence boost, the validation, the ability to just look back and think, wow, somebody has actually thought that what I do and what we're doing as a company is of value. They've recognised, and the accolade was just amazing. And it's opened so many doors and so many conversations. And that's why I've gone on to sponsor. So I sponsor the Care Award. And I do that because it's obviously my category and where I have a passion. But I think it's one of those categories where it's quite a diverse category. It covers people who are in a caring industry. So whether you're medical, non-medical, therapeutic, whatever it happens to be, it's such a diverse and beautiful category to be the sponsor for. So absolutely love it. I think that's me. Have I answered all the questions?
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
You have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I might pull you to go a little bit further because you once shared with me something about where you were when this happened, when you won. I don't know if you want to share anything about that further.
I'm happy to do that. Forgive me because I might get a bit emotional, but so my sister died in 2022, and I launched Strive in 2021. So a period of time of nursing my sister, because I am a nurse by background, and that is what I wanted to do. So I took the time and I dedicated sounds like a terrible word. I took the time and I spent the time with my sister looking after them until she died. So as you can imagine, launching a product and caring for a very sick relative and then managing your grief, I wasn't at my best from a business point of view. If you can imagine, my business decisions were not great. I mean, I've made some really dodgy decisions in that time. And I was really struggling financially, organisationally, purpose-wise. Everything was really difficult. And I was in that place of thinking, what do I do? Should I just keep going? And somebody nominated me for this award. And the fact that I won, and it just gave me back my belief in actually that I was doing the right thing, that I was helping people, and that is my purpose, that is my mission, that is my vision, that is what I'll continue to do. And it gave me that boost to keep on going. So I am eternally grateful to the person who nominated me, the Women's Awards, for providing me with the accolade and the confidence boost to carry on.
Right. Thank you so much. And I know that is quite personal to you, and I appreciate that. And I guess the reason I wanted you to share that, and thank you for doing that, is because when we nominate someone, we never know, where they are in their lives at that particular time. But what we are doing and what we're giving them is that encouragement to say, look, we see you. We see you, we see what you're doing, we value you, we value what you were doing and what you were giving of yourself to the world. And I know that can sound pretty woo-woo to some people, but that's the way my brain thinks. So and that's what it's about for me. It's about those levels, those stages of giving that recognition. And the first stage is to nominate someone to say, thank you, we see you. So that your experience there, Linda, definitely I think, was a situation, and it's made the world of difference, and to us as well. Because the other thing is, coming back, having winners come back to say we want to join and share and support is amazing. So again, if anyone has any questions, put them in the chat box. We have a few just to look at. So we have talked about you know some of the value, some of the outcome. But as sponsors and from a business perspective, um, yes, there are lots of different things that could be sponsored out there. But what, in terms of sponsorship, in terms of the impact on your business, um, what have been the good things and what have been the not so good things in terms of your experience with the Women's Awards? Anybody want to take that one as a business owner?
I'm happy to jump in there if I may, Sandra. Um, in a way, it builds a little bit on the back of what Linda's said as well, because when I, as a winner, when I was nominated, and hearing what other people had to say about me, because there is such a robust metric or merit-based judging that sits behind this. It's not a popularity contest. It's based on real factual data. And that starts to, for me, it starts to address the confidence gap, because it's very much a supportive entry process, nomination process. And what that's done for me, and it's really quite blown me away, reading what other people had to say about me, and being one of those women who kind of runs sometimes that old limiting belief, I'm not good enough, it's never enough, etc. I really had to stop and honour what people were saying, because I do the same for other people, and receiving is equally as important as offering. And professionally, what that's enabled me to do, brilliantly and imperfectly, is expand my leadership impact. I joined the faculty at the Institute for Women-Centred Coaching. I became, with a second collaborative book, an international best-selling author for a book around women, leadership and impact. We had a launch in Times Square. And personally, it's strengthened my confidence. It's reminded me about how important it is to celebrate achievements, our own and others. And it's deepened my commitment to step forward and support others. All of that is aligned to who I am as a person and what my business is here to do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to take that question? You don't have to. We have others.
Yeah, I'll chip in on that, Sandra. I mean, for me, it was about corporate social responsibility for the business rather than promoting the business. My business doesn't directly benefit from doing this at all, and that is not a negative. For me, that was never the goal. And it's the alignment of the causes that the awards represent and the bigger picture. I do work with a lot of female clients. There are a lot of females in the area that I work in, whether that is because a lot of it is primarily legal and a lot of women are in legal aspects of work, albeit if you look at the distribution, they are overwhelmingly in junior roles, and that's another story. But I was having a conversation this morning, and the client company, I obviously won't name, the individual I was talking to, I've known for many years, and I know that she was fortunate enough in the early days of her path through this career, and we all have different paths. She had a couple of very good sponsors in the company that she worked for. When she had young children, there was a lot of flexibility around dealing with the problems that can cause, and things like needing time off for children's illnesses and you name it. And that was dealt with very flexibly by her company at the time, albeit that was a long time ago. So they were ahead of the game, to be fair, in that time, and that has resulted or enabled her to develop to a very senior position in industry. And it's seeing things like that, seeing the value of things like that. And Deb always mentions the ripple effect. You never know. It goes back to what Linda was saying. You never know the effect that your participation, whether it's as a candidate when you weren't expecting it, a nominee, whether it's, oh, I'll just pop along and have a look, and then you get deeper and deeper and deeper into it because it really does resonate, or whatever your involvement is in this. Once you become involved, you never really see, or very rarely do you ever see the ripple effect of that activity, what the awards are doing to amplify women more broadly, what the impact is on individual winners, what the impact is on the teams that those individual winners work with, and the benefit to society that actually accrues from that. It's immeasurable, it's unknowable in many ways, but it is an effort that's worth making. And the benefit to me is not commercial, it's not promoting my company, it's doing something to give back and pay forward some of the good fortune maybe that I've been lucky enough to experience in life and in love, it must be said. And it just resonates. It goes to the heart of who I am.
Thank you, David. I do kind of feel involved in the coming together of yourself and Debbie, but that's for another conversation.
Could I just say, Sandra, just on the back of what Debbie said about confidence, as I said, that at the point that I was nominated, I was in a very difficult position and having a big decision to make around whether I carried on or not and how I carried on. And I think from Debbie said, reading what other people have said about you gives you that confidence. And, these awards are properly validated. You know that they are properly judged, properly validated, and that you are a worthy winner. And that gave me confidence to go forward and say no to a lot of things that I had been doing, a lot of stuff that I was chasing, thinking, companies who were interested in mental health would say, oh, why don't you come in and we'll give you a little bit of a trial and we'll see how you go. And if we like you, we'll maybe give you some business. I was just giving my time away for nothing. And this gave me the power to say, no, actually, if you want to use me, I'm skilled, I'm credible, I do an absolutely great job, and I will deliver a great service. But do you know what? You don't try before you buy. You don't try your accountant or your electrician or your plumber before you buy. You just buy. So, sorry, that's my rant for today. But that's what it's given me the confidence to do. And the impact on my business has been huge, and on myself, and on the team around me.
Yeah. And that is really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's important. And I think that, that again, we go back to your phrase, Debbie, the dominoes effect. You sharing that, with other women, gives them the encouragement and the confidence to relook at how they see their own worth. So it's really not just about the trophy or the certificate or the nomination. It's about what we are learning and sharing from each other. And that's the community, really, because people grow by listening, by observing, by, experiencing someone else's experience as they share that. So it's really, really important. Thank you very much. Thank you. And that touches on to, my passion for really sharing this as a movement, because there's so many different ways in which people benefit. Even, David said it time and time again. Even if you just get involved and come along, and I believe it changes you. But I'm bound to say that because I'm founder. But from what you're saying, hopefully that is the truth. So this might sound like a strange question to ask you, but what would you like to see in terms of the ongoing impact of the Women's Awards? Whether you're seeing that already or whether it's something, different to consider. What have been your thoughts around that? I'm not picking on anyone in particular. So, if you've had thoughts about that, what would you like to see?
Yeah, shall I take this?
Yeah.
I think what I would like to see is a movement, a ripple, if you like, whatever, a tsunami actually would be better, of women who can feel that level of empowerment and that level of confidence. Because I think a lot of women are in roles where, like mine, and probably like yours, Debbie and Sandra, when you're coaching, but it's seen as a little bit woolly, a little bit fluffy, a little bit, it's not engineering, it's not medicine, it's not something concrete and specific. So it doesn't get the same value. And I think for us, it's how do we help women to recognize that value, to recognize the value within themselves, but not only that, but the impact they have on the world, and to actually just hold their line on their worth, recognize their worth, and step into it, really.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Linda, because that's what I'd like to see. That's why I'm doing this. And not only for the current generation, but for generations to come. And I love that tsunami scenario. I think that would be perfect. So, okay, how do we do that then? How do you think um we can work even more to make that happen? Not just asking you, I mean anybody can respond.
Can I jump in there, Sandra?
Yeah.
And it does build on some of what Linda said. Before I came on the call, I was reading I think it's the 11th McKinsey report on women in the workplace. And I was reading about women are significantly less likely to have sponsors than men. Okay, they're doing that in the corporate context. But in that context, with sponsors, those men who are likely to be promoted twice as fast. And to me, when women are sponsored, whether it's through a nomination, whether it's through involvement, whether it's being a category sponsor, whether it's being an ambassador, I think the power of advocacy is why these awards and your inspiring leadership behind it are so crucial in this broader context, because we've got so many challenges that our world is facing today. And we're not going to solve them with the same thinking that created it in the first place. And I want my sponsorship and my involvement to help really dismantle that broken rung, where the gap between women's acknowledgement, women's promotions, women getting access to funds, etc., is reduced, and where we shift the culture, where it becomes the norm, where women stepping into visibility and recognition isn't the exception, and I really, really do believe in this, where we really are part of a change that actually celebrates collaboration and creativity, meaningful contribution, and the softer skills of empathy as well, because all these things take courage. So for me, I think under your vision and creating this community and movement, I think we've got a real chance of shifting the way we do the world, shifting the way humanity. And I know for some people that might be to use your words, a bit woo-woo. But I think it's really connecting with those unseen, unrecognized, unacknowledged contributions that are happening, perhaps in silos in communities in our country and around our world, and really bringing those forward to solve some of the world's bigger problems. Because right now, in my opinion, we need it.
I agree 100%, definitely. And I think that, even when I hear the phrase softer skills, which, if we look historically, that's been the term used for the skills that women bring, they're not soft. They are foundational. If you think about it, when someone feels heard and seen, that makes their decision making quicker, easier, and more authentic to who they are. And therefore, they bring more of themselves into the situation. Whereas when the reverse is the case, where people end up not feeling heard and seen, they're more resistant. Everything becomes more difficult because they're not being accepted for who they are. So I agree with you, and I am hoping and believing that things are changing, maybe far too slowly for my liking. You know me, I want everything done yesterday. But in terms of how we look at the world, that if you and I know you do, Linda, you read about, brain science and emotions and how all of those things impact on the world around us. Well, actually, those are the things that women have been more aware of because we have been historically um, cultured to look after everybody else. So how do you look after everybody else? You become more aware of what other people are thinking, how they're behaving, all of those sorts of stuff. So it is, the tankard is being turned around, but as we know, they're big and slow. So our involvement, I think, is instrumental to bringing about sort of, the changes that we'd like to see. Any other thoughts on that from anybody else?
Yeah, I think one of the things that strikes me, a comment comes to mind by a politician, and I don't want to make this political, that
Everything's political, David.
that's true. Women progress better I'm paraphrasing. Women progress better in their careers. Sorry, men progress better in their careers than women do because men are more committed to the companies that they work for. And when women leave to have a family, they're making a different choice. Now, let's reduce this to its fundamentals. Without women having babies, and they're the only ones who can, we become extinct. So it's a fairly fundamental requirement that then, if we don't reproduce, we cease to exist. So what I'd like to see is some sort of recognition of that. And by that, what I'm thinking is when women leave a company or take leave from a company in order to have a baby, then companies should have some kind of obligation to maintain the contact with the employee who is temporarily absent, to maintain any training that it's possible for them to undergo while they are away, and to keep their skills updated, and to facilitate their return to work in a better state of preparation than they would be if they'd just been left alone to deal with bringing up a child or children. And therefore, the company effectively loses the investment that it made in that employee previously. And it makes sense to me that there should be some kind of recognition of this. One thought that occurred to me this morning: I'm a fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society. I'm not saying that for my own good here. Out of idle curiosity, I decided to look up on their website what percentage of fellows of the Royal Aeronautical Society are female. Answer 4.6. And that answer was last updated in 2021. It's 4.6 was actually higher than the 3 point something that it was in 2015. And yes, that's progress, but it's not enough progress and it's not fast enough. And I acknowledge that I'm looking at an awful area as an example because it combines STEM and aeronautics. Both are areas in which women are woefully underrepresented, and both are areas in which some of the most remarkable people I've encountered in my working life have been women. So there is this huge untapped resource that is not being supported and or recognised in ways which would maximise the benefit for the company and for the individual and for society. And that's just my how to design a better tomorrow.
And we agree with that 100% and more. It makes so much sense. But the difficulty is that there aren't enough people thinking as widely and as about the future as you are, David. So hence the issue. And you made a comment which I'm sure is about how people see women and how their contribution to the workplace and men's contribution to the workplace, and it was like, men are more committed to the workplace. And that is sort of a phrase that goes around that really isn't as true. It's that men have women at home looking after their other needs in the main. It's a generalization. So they can focus their attention more singularly. Whereas women, even in this age, 21st century, amidst all that I do, I still hold and feel the responsibility to make sure everybody's clean, the house is clean, the food's there, all of the, yes, my husband goes shopping, but I still have that burden of thinking about everybody else. Whereas men are reared not to think that way unless they've had a really disciplined mother that changed that for them. But that's how women are seen. So even when their contribution, and if you speak to many of our winners, and not even winners, just those people who were nominated, and you hear their stories as we've talked about, they still, in their working environment, as brilliant as they are, they're not seen in the same way that a man who may accomplish less is seen. So yes, we are here to change the world, and it's great that I've got you on my side to help to help make this happen. So I'm just thinking, is there, what else would you like people to know about your experience of the Women's Awards? And if I was to ask the question, what would you say the Women's Awards effect is? I know you shouldn't ask two questions at the same time, but how might you answer that? Linda, maybe?
Sorry, I'm on mute. I think the effect is, I think there's a personal effect, which I've talked about, that increase in confidence. I think there is the business effect, which is impacted on by the increase in confidence. But I think there's also a view from people looking in at you. If you are an award winner, people are interested. What award have you won? What did you do to get that? And I think there is a value that comes with that opens doors, it opens conversations, and it helps to add credibility to whatever it is you're trying to talk about or whatever it is you're trying to sell at the time. And I think the Women's Awards specifically is a reputable award system. And I think there are a lot of awards out there. I mean, you can buy an award, can't you? You can buy an advert in a magazine, and you can have an award that gives you a certificate for being whatever. And I was duped with that a couple of times when I first came out the NHS, thinking, oh, this lovely person's contacted me and wants to award me. And it was just like, no, it's marketing, you daft women. Um, so I think there's all of those things that, you know, this is a credible award system, that you're validated by your peers who independently score you and judge you. And I think that gives it real credibility. So it does give that validation to the confidence. Sorry, I think I might have rambled there. I do apologize.
No, not at all. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Debbie?
So, I mean, I've already talked about the impact on me personally of the Women's Awards, how it has grown my confidence, and the impact on some aspects of my business. I think there's also something really, really important, and it's about storytelling, and it's about role modeling, because we're all different. But the more we see people and hear about what other people have done, in my experience, in my own life, in my business, and with other people, it inspires others. And I think that's another reason why the Women's Awards has so much impact. I mean, the awards ceremony, I think, as David said, you know, it's a great night to celebrate. It's also an incredibly humbling night when you stop and you hear people share about their stories and the challenges that people have faced. And Linda's talked, you know, so eloquently about the impact and her own personal, where she was in her life. When you hear stories like that, it reminds me that we're all in this together. We've all got challenges, and just taking that time out, listening to those stories, sharing those stories, reading about those stories, I think it's life-changing. And I don't say that lightly at all.
Thank you. David, anything to add?
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on Deb's thread about storytelling, but not necessarily the storytelling of the candidates and the winners. The bigger picture storytelling of, I think the media have got a role to play here. And you know, it's often been said that the media focus too much on bad news, and they do, in my view. There is a fantastic story to tell here, and the amount of amplification that could be achieved by greater media involvement in reporting the event itself and a little bit about the backstories of the people involved, to the extent that they're comfortable with that, would play a huge part in amplifying both the individuals and the event. And anything that we can do collectively or individually to bring that about, I think would be a win-win.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And yes, we do talk to the media, you know, throughout the year, and especially around the awards. And it is quite interesting what they are interested in. I'll leave it at that. But yes, we can. The wonderful thing I think about the time we're living in now is that we have social media. We have social media. We use it an awful lot in terms of promoting the Women's Awards, promoting the stories as much as we can. And if we look at, again, you know, what's happening with the BBC, what's happening with, you know, lots of other media houses, things are changing. You know, and again, I think that we do have some influence and some power in regard to that. So I know there are other people in the room. If anybody else has any questions that they would like to ask, either about the Women's Awards or to the panelists, please go ahead and do so. You could just unmute yourself or just drop a message in the or your question in the chat box, and we will take that up. So that opportunity is there for you. So I shall let people think about that, but you don't have to. But that opportunity is there. So as it has been, before I go on to, we've got a few more minutes, and I just want to pick on Debbie. You mentioned that you worked in a very woman-centered way. Now, the Women's Awards is all about being women-centered. So what do you mean by that?
So, as you know, I'm a coach and I work in leadership. And contextually, our world, the world of work, was set up by men for men. I mean, David's spoken about that in terms of, you know, the caring and etc. And what that means for me is that so much of the way that things were set up, including coaching programs, mentoring programs, leadership programs, was set up using the same framework that it's always been. And so if you keep replicating what's always happened, you're going to get more of the same. In a woman-centered way, and that coin was phrased by my colleague and the researcher, Dr. Claire Zammit, who looked at the big barriers that are getting in the way for women. In looking at it through what's getting in the way for women, what's getting in the way in terms of culture, what's getting in the way in terms of society, the way we've done leadership, the way we've done business, the way we've interacted, what we acknowledge. And in overcoming those limiting beliefs, overcoming what's going on in the nervous system, having different conversations about culture, really acknowledging that celebrating, amplifying, sponsoring, and collaborating with other women is actually not only beneficial to us, it's good for society. We don't need to be as unfortunately, I mean, I can remember growing up in this world where you were encouraged to behave like a man in the workplace, and sometimes that meant almost standing on other people, and that never sat well with me. So in a woman-centered way, putting the language behind, that's the sort of thing that was and possibly is going on in culture. Well, how do we do things differently? We do things differently by amplifying, by sponsoring, by encouraging women, by collaborating, by really celebrating others, including others' achievements, and building programs, including leadership, coaching programs around ways that work for women, changes lives. And I've seen it change lives. That's what I
Absolutely.
mean.
Thank you. Absolutely. Now, I know, Linda, with a lot of the changes that you've taken in recent years in terms of your business, that your approach is different in terms of, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that at all.
Yeah, I absolutely resonate with what Debbie's saying, that I think that the approach that we take from a company point of view is very much about helping people to have that personal agency, so understanding the world that they're operating in. So it's and we do that through a simplistic framework. So it's helping people to understand how do I get the absolute best out of myself. So what is my framework that I'm operating within, and what is the philosophy that I'm applying? And those two things are very simple, but when you bring them together, they're exceptionally powerful, and they're easy to apply to everyday decisions. So, you know, we don't work with executive leaders. We work with people who are probably middle management or below, you know, just, you know, teachers who are trying to teach a classroom, warehouse workers who are trying to do whatever, forklift drivers, you know, women in construction, you name it. We're just working with people who are trying to work in teams. And quite often teams, well, teams work around the culture, don't they? So helping someone understand their position within that culture to be able to make little decisions that give them personal agency, give them confidence, and help them to have the conversations that they need. So it's pretty similar to Debbie, but from a different perspective, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. And I have seen that in both your businesses and the way you work. And I guess David's being male is actually coming from the other side of that, but working in a similar inclusive way, really. So so thank you very much for that. So we have 2 minutes left. So I want to say a huge thank you for joining us, for being so honest and open about your experience with the Women's Awards, why you've gotten involved, and you know what your intentions are for the future. And knowing that we have such amazing individuals like yourselves on board makes my life, my world, my passion for the Women's Awards much easier. So thank you, Debbie Moore, David Hayes, and Linda Neville for joining us today. So just before we finish, I'm just going to share that, as was said early on by Debbie, 10 years, 2026 is going to be 10 years. So there's lots of opportunity to get involved. What are we going to be doing in the new year? Obviously, our annual awards. The date is not set yet, but I will let you know as soon as that comes out. In addition, we've got our usual International Women's Day. That will be coming up in March. There's opportunities to get involved as speakers and sorting out what exactly we're going to be doing. Okay, and what else we have got? I'm looking to do an event in spring, which is going to be slightly different, a little bit of fun, but we will see. So again, thank you very much for getting involved. The Women's Awards, you can find at thewomensAwards.com or shine-together.co.uk. So that's all for now. I'm Sandra Pollock and my wonderful panelists signing out for now. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.